Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now a few weeks ago I turned a rather large beautiful piece of brown mallee burl. This is red mallee, obviously a very close relative. The grain pattern is just as stunning, but it has much more of a reddy hue to the heartwood. Now the reason why I've bought another one, apart from it just being a beautiful piece of wood and I had to have it, a lot of people commented in the video that they would have loved to have seen all of this texture left natural. So what I'm going to try and do is just that. We are going to have to turn away a small amount here so we can get it into our jaws, but apart from that I'm going to try and leave as much of this on as possible. Now you can't get it sitting flat without turning away an awful lot of this area, so to get over that I'm going to make a stand for it. So I've never done anything quite like this before, so it's going to be fun. So we'll get started. Now, a crucial element here is that I don't drill too far into this piece, because I will need to turn a lot of this away just to be able to get some jaws in there. So I'm going to put a mark on my drill bit, the least I think I can go in, and then if I do need to go a bit further, then I'll go a bit further. That should be absolutely fine. I'll try and hold this square and flat. Okay, we're on the lathe. Because we're doing so little turning to this side, there's no point in putting a tailstock in, because I won't be able to get in there around it and do what I need to do. So what I'm trying to do is just create a very small clearing, deep enough to be able to fit the jaws in, so for when we turn it around we can turn out a bowl. Right, I'm going to start off, well, all of this is going to be done with a carbide cutter, because again my normal tools aren't going to work in that tight an area. Turning at about 750 RPM. We're nearly there. We'll need it to be about 40 mil, so it needs to go out just a little bit more and still a little bit deeper. That'll do it. Lovely. Right, I just need to put a small undercut on there, just so it locks into the jaws. And that's that. There's no sanding. Okay, all right, we'll turn it round. Okay, we're all turned round. Now, time to start creating a small bowl in this area. Now we know where we can go down to because of the worm screw, so let's investigate how wide this bowl can be. I've got two considerations here. I've got obviously the width of the face of the wood, but also I've got areas and delves on the back side which I don't want to open up and have a big hole in there, so I think I can go a little bit wider than that. The top of this isn't exactly flat, so we'll deal with that in a little while. But first of all, let's hollow this out. Right, the face not being even is driving me crazy. I think I'll flatten this off first and then we'll make the bowl. you can certainly see where the high parts are. Okay, that's pretty flat now. Still got some sorting out to do here, but we can do that in a little while. I'll just redraw my bowl. It's going to sharpen up again, and then we'll hollow this out. Excellent. I was going to get a scraper in there just to sort out that little bit. That's excellent. Now I'll just get the tool rest at right angles to the lathe and just do the same on here just to tidy up these areas. Actually worked better than I hoped. Right, excellent. Right, I'm going to set up for sanding. I'll let you watch a bit of it, not that there's going to be an awful lot. I'll definitely bring you back at the end. Okay, sanding all went beautifully. Now I'm still a little bit undecided as to what finish to put on this. I think a lot depends on the style of base I go for. So I'm dying to have a look at this grain, so I was going to put a bit of isopropyl alcohol just to watch it explode. I can never get enough of this wood. Okay, right, I'm going to go and have a hunt around my stores for something nice to make a base out of. Okay, I've had a hunt around the workshop and I found this beautiful piece of bog oak which I intend to use. Now I think the black of this is going to be a nice contrast against the colours in the mallee burl, so what we're going to do is put a worm screw hole in off centre so I can try and keep the same kind of shape as we've got going with this piece. So it'll be mounted like that. Turn a small recess on this side so I can turn it around and finish it off, and also just sort out that base and get it all nice and polished. When that's done, we'll turn it around, we'll create the stem for the mallee burl and then start turning this edge down to create a nice sweeping line to the base. Now I'm going to take the base down to about there, I think, so it'll be kind of curving up into the stem from around the edges. Now this kind of texture left on the side, I'm not going to sand that. I'm just going to leave that exactly as it is because it is absolutely beautiful. Right, that's the plan. Let's get started. Okay, we're on the lathe, we're all set up and sharpened. Now as you can see, we are considerably off centre, but with such a small piece we should be okay. I would normally use a tailstock in this situation, but again, with it being such a small piece, I'm going to have to live without it. But I am going to be stood well to the side when I start turning. Now initially I'm just going to flatten off the surface with a bowl gouge and then going with a scraper to make sure it's all nice and flat, and then we'll put a recess in. Speed wise, we're going to be turning at about 750 RPM. Good, excellent. Now I'm going to be using a palm sander so it's completely flat when I'm sanding that off, but now I need to mark out for my tenon. That's where the recess is going to be. Okay, that's good. Right, I'm going to quickly sand this base. You don't really need to see this, and then I'll turn it around and I'll bring you back when we're starting the fancy bit on the top. Okay, turned around, I'm on the lathe, and I've got a little crack on this side which I'm a little bit cautious of. So I'm going to use the tailstock, but before I start turning I'm just going to dribble in a little bit of thin CA glue in here, just to try and give myself a little bit of security. I'm just going to let that sit for a little while. I'm not going to hit it with any activator because I don't want to risk it bubbling up, because I'm trying to keep this as a natural edge as possible. So I'll let that set and then we'll start turning the outside. Okay, that's had time to set. Now the white line I've put on is like a safety barrier. It's much wider, well it's about 3-4 millimeters wider than I need it to be, but I don't necessarily at the moment want to start turning inside that area. That's going to be done in a little while when we start to think about fitting it up. At the moment I just want to start taking this away, lowering these edges to about there on the base, I think. Right, this could be interesting. Okay, you see the start we're making. That's good. It's quite difficult because I can't really see this area as it's going around. It's a bit of a blur, so it's more guesswork than anything else. Okay, I'll just angle this tool rest a little bit to make life a little bit easier. Also what I'll do is I'm just going to put a white line above where I want to end up, just so hopefully I can spot it a bit easier as it's going around. Well, that's what I was scared of happening, and it happened. I think a recess was a bad idea. Where is it? Okay, that was the outcome of that. I think it was just too much for this 1,000-year-old wood, so we will move on to plan B. Welcome to plan B. Now this was actually my original idea for this piece, and then I decided to go with the bog oaking instead. Now this is another piece of red mallee burl which I bought after completing the top, and I thought it would look very nice sat on the top like that. Not that kind of angle with it over the side, but more that way, so it's more of a statement piece. So we're going to do that. Now this is the area we're going to make the joint. It's not ideal, but I'm pretty sure we can make it work. So I have to, that's the high point there. I've got to put another worm screw in, another worm screw hole in at the opposite angle, get it on the lathe, and we're just going to be turning this little bit here. Now the base I'm going to sand afterwards, just with a normal sander. That doesn't need an awful lot of work. Right, okay, let's get this one done. Okay, we're on the worm screw. It's a little out of balance, as you can imagine. Not quite as bad as the bog oak. Now I just want to, my little white dot I put at the start, it's not quite in the centre, so I'm just going to quickly mark exactly where the centre is. Right, I can now kind of gauge where I need. How am I doing this? Right, I can now kind of gauge the outside area. Now this is going to be a very tricky turning because I only want to turn off a small amount, because I've got to make a tenon here to fit inside the other one, and I don't want to wreck too much of the outside because I want to try and leave as many of these spikes next to it as possible. So I'm not quite sure exactly the best way of doing this yet. Let me have a think and plan out a strategy of attack. Okay, now I've got a white mark on my tool rest where the center is, and I've got these two bits of green tape either side, and I want to be cutting just on the outside of it. Okay, to make the tenon. I may just flatten this area off first, just to give myself something which will need to be buttered up against the piece it's marrying to. Now I've got to be very, very careful. I'm going to take this down in bits and keep on bringing the other piece up until they marry up together in the right angle. This is going to be a little bit of experimentation, and I have no idea. It may not work, but let's hope it does. I know it's a little premature, but I'm just going to bring up the other piece and see where we're at. Okay, these edges need to come away a little bit here. Okay, I'm getting to a point where I can't do much more with turning tools. I found a place where I'm happy with the design, which is there, but I've got a couple of bits just touching a little bit around this area, so I'm going to get out my Dremel and just soften these areas, just take them down a little bit, just so we lose these hard edges, and this just sits perfectly in that location. Right, so I'm going to get out my tools, or the Dremel rather, and we'll get this married up a bit. Okay, I think that's about as nice or as good as we can get that. What I need to do now is to start putting a coating or some kind of finish on all of these pieces. I also need to sand up the base of this piece as well, so I think I'll do that first, sand this, and then we'll come back and start putting a finish on all these pieces. I'm not going to glue it up until all the finishes are dry, because I don't want it's going to create areas that I'm going to have trouble getting into if I glue it up first. Okay, we're ready to start putting the finish on this. I'm going to use a Danish oil, and I'm going to put it on fairly liberally at the start with a sponge. I've been advised to do this by one of the viewers, and he seemed to know what he was talking about, so I'm always welcome. So I always take advice whenever it's given. I'm going to put it on quite liberally, let it sit for about 20 minutes and then come to wipe it down. After that we'll leave it for 24 hours or a bit less. Normally it dries quicker, but at the moment it's quite cold in here, so I'm going to give it a little bit longer than normal. But that wood is absolutely amazing. Now I was slightly disappointed when I was turning this red mallee out. The parts that were very, very red did turn away, so I'm getting more into the sapwood area of it, which is unfortunate. It's still darker than the brown mallee that turned before, but you just wait to get to see the other side of this. I'm going to put it on there. Right, I'll just turn this over for the moment. Actually quite surprised that this Burl surface isn't tearing this foam pad apart. It's doing all right. I'll let that sit. Now I would normally glue these together with a bit of wood glue, but as I've just accidentally put Danish oil on the ends, on the tenon, I'm going to use an epoxy or something like that to put them together. This piece reminds me of some sort of kraken or octopus. It's an absolutely amazing shape. Well, that's the colour red mallee is supposed to be like. Well, I am going to get some more pieces of this because I absolutely love this wood. Right, I think I'll leave that one that way up. I'm going to let these sit for 20 minutes, then I'll come back and wipe off the excess, and then I'll put another coat on in about 20 hours, something like that. But I'll bring you back when I put it all together and we can take a look at the finished article. Well, there we have it. Now, I had no idea what you could call this. Yes, it's a bowl, but it's so much more than that. It really is quite unusual. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, the main purpose of this whole project was to try and leave as much of the natural texture of the burl as possible. And by adding this second piece, I think we've really turned this into something quite distinctive. If you've got an idea of what we could call this, or a name for it, then please leave a comment in the description below. But anyway, there you go. If you've enjoyed this one, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. If you leave a comment as well, like for instance what you would name this, then you're going to be entered into the giveaway when we next do one. I don't have a date yet, but hopefully in the next few weeks I'll decide on when the next giveaway will be. Right, I'll put some beauty shots of this at the end, but apart from that, thank you very much indeed for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.